Minato Namikaze, the future fourth Hokage.
Minato Namikaze is usually reduced to one word in Naruto discussions: fast, the yellow flash, teleportation, speed blitz. But that surface-level interpretation completely misses the real reason Minato was feared across nations. Minato didn't just fight fast. He engineered a fighting style designed to end battles before they truly began. And when you break it down carefully, it becomes very hard to argue that any shinobi ever created a more lethal system of combat.
The Yellow Flash. He may have an easygoing and kind personality, but behind that smile, behind that facade, lies something else. Minato is a machine, a killing machine. He is one of the deadliest ninjas in the history of shinobi, and has developed what is the most lethal form of battle in Naruto. So today, let us talk about that. Minato is the only ninja that we know of that got a flee on sight order during the Third Great Ninja War. This is sort of a throwaway line, but a lot of people give it a lot of credit for a good reason. Imagine you see someone in the battlefield of a major war, and just by seeing that person, your orders are to retreat and fly away. Get as far away from that dude as humanly possible because you are going to die. That's what a flee on sight order is. The Stone Village, and by extent Onoki the Tsuchikage, knew that his shinobi had no chance against Minato. They were just going to die if they faced him. So he just told them, yeah, just go back, retreat. If you see the guy, don't do anything. We're just gonna lose our soldiers. That first guy.
What made Minato dangerous wasn't raw power. He didn't rely on overwhelming chakra reserves like Naruto, reality-warping eyes like Madara, or destructive spectacle like Hashirama. Minato's lethality came from efficiency. His style removed reaction time, removed counterplay, and removed prolonged combat. If Minato decided a fight was over, it usually was, instantly.
That Minato encounters didn't realize that was Minato up until the last second, which was his greatest mistake. If he had fled, it's likely Minato wouldn't have pursued him. But that is the first time we get a glimpse of what Minato can do, of how he crafted his shinobi art to the utmost limit to maximize the amount of damage he can dish in a second. We don't know exactly how many people Minato killed during the Third Great Ninja War. A lot of people say he killed 1,000 stone ninjas in that Kakashi Gaiden flashback arc, but no, there was a battalion of stone ninjas that he disposed of, but that was not 1,000 ninjas. There's a filler episode in which Onoki says that they sent 1,000 stone ninjas and only one was enough to take care of all of them, which was Minato.
We sent 1,000 of our shinobi. It took just one of them, namely the Yellow Flash.
But one, that was filler, and two, that was not the same situation as in the Kakashi Gaiden arc. Also, we don't know if Onoki is referring to a single situation when Minato took care of 1,000 ninjas at the same time, or if he's referring to the entire war effort and the amount of ninjas Minato disposed of during the entire Third Great Ninja War. But regardless of that, I think we can assume that Minato killed at least 1,000 stone ninjas during the entire Third Great Ninja War. And you have to remember that they were not just fighting against the Stone Village, they were also fighting against the Cloud Village. So imagine how many more of the Clouds Minato got. His lethality was off the charts, but how did he accomplish such thing? What makes Minato different? Because yeah, there are several extremely powerful ninjas, some that even match Minato's abilities or even surpass him, but he wouldn't call them as lethal as Minato. Someone like Hashirama, for example. Yeah, in terms of raw power, sure, Hashirama beats Minato, but when it comes to this finesse, this assassin type, Minato is probably top one in the verse. Well, everything starts with his core characteristic, speed. Minato is the fastest Naruto character up until the war arc, essentially. He's recognized by his speed, and I'm not even talking about the Flying Raijin, I'm just talking about his sheer movement speed. That's already going to make him very difficult to deal with. When you eclipse 99.9% of every single opponent you're going to encounter in terms of speed so much that they can't even see you moving, that obviously means you have a massive advantage over them. But obviously that's not just it. Minato doesn't have only his sheer speed. He also has the Flying Raijin, his signature jutsu that allows him to hop from mark to mark.
The foundation of this style was Flying Raijin, but Flying Raijin alone doesn't explain Minato's dominance. What made it lethal was how Minato combined it with timing, positioning, and intent. He wasn't teleporting randomly. He was controlling space. Every marker turned the battlefield into his territory, and every opponent into a target who could never feel safe. Unlike most Naruto fights, which escalate through power-ups and exchanges, Minato's fights often skipped the middle entirely. There was no prolonged clash, no adaptation phase, just execution. That's why enemy nations issued a flee-on-sight order, not because Minato was unbeatable in a traditional sense, but because engaging him was mathematically stupid. Minato's fighting style punished aggression. The faster and more confident his opponent was, the easier they were to kill. This is especially clear in how he dealt with elite ninja during the Third Great Ninja War. These weren't fodder enemies. These were trained killers who still couldn't even register what happened before they were dead.
Instantaneously. This jutsu is not only good for offense, but also defense. He can essentially escape pretty much any attack by just flying away. And because it is so fast and it happens instantaneously, it's just very difficult for you to hit Minato with anything, which is a good point that increases his lethality. And you may say, wait, what? Why does his defense increase his offense? Well, if you get hit and you die or you get really hurt, you can't attack anymore. Imagine Minato taking on the army of stone ninjas, but he gets wounded in the third ninja he's fighting against. Then he's no longer going to be able to take care of the rest, right? His lethality is going to decrease substantially. So Minato takes advantage of that and uses the Flying Raijin offensively and defensively, and many times simultaneously. He attacks and defends with the same Flying Raijin jutsu, like when he got Obito with a Rasengan, for example. He dodged out of Obito's grasp and landed the Rasengan using one Flying Raijin teleportation.
This brings us to the most controversial part of the discussion. Minato's style was more lethal than most dojutsu-based fighting styles because it didn't require build-up. The Sharingan needs perception. The Rinnegan needs abilities to activate. Minato needed a seal and intent. That's it. Once conditions were met, the fight ended. And unlike brute force fighters, Minato didn't leave room for recovery. His kills were clean, precise, surgical. He wasn't breaking bones. He was ending lives. In a real shinobi context, that matters far more than flashy destruction.
Going back to his primary weapon, it's a kunai, that fancy-looking kunai with 3 prongs that has the mark. He uses that a lot during his fights. And that's obvious, right? It's a pre-marked object. You don't have to touch anything else to mark it. You can just throw the kunais around the battlefield if you're expecting to fight against somebody powerful or several opponents at the same time, and you have a battlefield where you can hop to anywhere essentially, attack from any angle, dodge out of pretty much any attack. That's how Minato disposes of the stone army that we see in the Kakashi Gaiden flashback. He tells the ally Konoha ninjas to toss.
Another overlooked aspect of Minato's fighting style is psychological warfare. Fighting Minato meant fighting fear. You never knew where he was. You never knew where he would strike. Every kunai could be your death. Every shadow could be him. That constant pressure breaks opponents before blades ever meet. Compare this to other legendary ninja. Madara overwhelmed enemies through dominance. Hashirama through sheer presence. Minato dismantled them through inevitability. There's a difference between being strong and being unavoidable.
Several kunais in the direction of the stone ninjas, and then Minato's gonna take care of the rest. One of the ninjas even says, well, you shouldn't blink because you're gonna miss it. And that's exactly what happens. It's so fast. Minato takes care of the stone army really quickly by hopping from kunai to kunai, using the teleportation speed on top of his physical speed to slash and kill every single enemy ninja. When he fights against A and B, he tosses several kunais around the battlefield to do the same thing. B tries to come up with a counter by trying to predict to which kunai he would jump to, using the maximum speed he had access to try and reach Minato before he could hop away, but Minato comes up with a very clever counter and he marks Killer B's tail instead and bamfs to Killer B. And that's the thing, Minato trusts his kunai slashes/thrusts very much, because he hardly ever uses his Rasengan.
Minato also removed one of the biggest variables in combat: stamina. Traditional ninja battles are wars of attrition, chakra depletion, fatigue, injury. Minato bypassed all of that. His fights didn't last long enough for exhaustion to matter. That's an incredibly unfair advantage in a world where most techniques drain users rapidly. Critics argue that Minato's style only works in ideal conditions: preparation, seals, space. But that argument ignores reality. Minato was the one creating those conditions. Every battle expanded his advantage. The longer he lived, the deadlier his style became. That's scalability in its purest form. What makes this debatable is that Minato's fighting style lacks spectacle. It doesn't look impressive compared to meteors, Susanoo, or tailed beasts. But lethality isn't about size, it's about outcome. And Minato's outcomes were brutally consistent. Even Obito, a future god-tier threat, nearly died instantly the first time Minato engaged him. Not after a long fight, not after transformation stacking. One mistake. One opening. Almost death. That tells you everything about how dangerous this style really was. Minato's style also aged incredibly well. Unlike techniques that became obsolete due to power creep, Flying Raijin remained relevant at the highest levels of combat. Even in the war arc, it was treated as a top-tier ability. That longevity proves how fundamentally broken the concept was. However, and this is where the debate heats up, Minato's fighting style depends heavily on the user. In the wrong hands, it's inefficient. In Minato's hands, it was perfected. That raises the question, was the style lethal? Or was Minato? Some argue that Minato didn't invent the deadliest fighting style. He simply mastered it better than anyone else ever could. Others argue that the style itself was inherently unfair, and Minato just unlocked its full potential. And that's where Naruto fans divide. Because if you believe Minato created the most lethal fighting style, then you're saying efficiency beats power, precision beats scale, intelligence beats destiny. And that challenges a lot of Naruto's later themes. Minato represents a version of Naruto where god-tier power wasn't necessary to dominate the battlefield, where planning mattered more than bloodlines, where a single mistake meant death. And maybe that's why his style feels so dangerous even now. Because it reminds us that in the ninja world, the deadliest fighter isn't the loudest one. It's the one you never see coming. So did Minato create the most lethal fighting style in the ninja world? That depends on how you define strength. And that question alone is enough to start a war in the comments.